Welcome, everybody. I hope we have a growing number of people joining the room. So glad you're here today to share this conversation with us. My name is Michelle Alexander, and I'm a member of the business team here at Mississippi Today. So very happy to bring a special conversation to all of you between our CEO, Mary Margaret White, and Bill Dunlap, a beloved Mississippian artist who's joining us from Florida today. And then straight from the Delta, we have Hank Burdine. One thing we've learned is when you organize a conversation about Julia Reed, there is an incalculable number of friends to include. So we took the liberty to bring in an extra today, straight from Chatham, Mississippi. So thanks everyone for being here. We are a little bit retooling our planned programming for the last bit of the year. We've done some virtual conversations over the summer, had planned to trend back into in-person, but we're revamping. So we'll bring you more news on that later. But for now, let's just enjoy today. A toast to Julia and to you, our supporters. Please always contact me if you have any questions. I'm not going to get back on today because we have such a full hour prepared for you, but call me and keep in touch if there's anything we can do at Mississippi Today, and we'll be happy to share information with you about how to support our nonprofit newsroom and the work of our sports columnists and our journalists and Marshall Ramsey and all of us here that work every day to bring the news to you, because after all, we do report to you. Enjoy the conversation and thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Margaret White. I'm CEO, Executive Director here at Mississippi Today, and so pleased to have with me Bill Dunlap and our friend Hank Burdine to remember Julia Reed. I want to tell you a little bit of a backstory about this project. I love Instagram. Like a lot of you, I probably spend a little more time on Instagram than I should, and Bill Dunlap is one of my favorite artists, persons of interest to follow on Instagram. And throughout the past year, I had noticed an incredible collection of images of Julia Reed that Bill had shared on Instagram. And for someone like me, who is a Delta native, who has built a life in arts and letters, and admired Julia Reed very much, but didn't know her very well, this was just such a special peek inside of her life and this incredible friendship that she has shared with Bill Dunlap. So on a chance, I wrote Bill an email, and he was very gracious to reply and say, yeah, let's do it. Let's bring out these pictures and let's tell some stories. After we connected, Bill suggested that Hank join us, Hank Burdine, the de facto mayor of the Delta, and we'll be bringing Hank in later in the conversation as we get into some of our Delta images of Julia. I don't think that Bill Dunlap needs an introduction, but I feel like I should do that because he's made time to be here with us, along with his beautiful wife, Linda Burgess. Thank you both. Like Michelle said, Bill's joining us from Coral Gables, by way of Mathiston, Mississippi, I guess we should say, a Mississippi native, one of our own. We all know him as an incredible painter, a writer, an arts advocate, and he is here with us today to help celebrate his friend and creative companion, Julia Reed. Thank you, Bill, for joining us.
Happy to be here. And I thank Mississippi Today, to whom I subscribe, for all the good work you all do.
All right, well, I am going to share my screen so I can show you all our beautiful slideshow that we've got ready for you. Let me get this into presentation mode. So the way we'll do our conversation today is we'll start to share images of Julia, and I've got some questions for you, Bill, and for you, Hank. But let's get started. A lot of you have seen this image as part of our promotions. And I think for many of us, myself included, that didn't know Julia very well, this is our perception of her: polished, elegant, confident. Bill, talk to us a little bit about where this strength and polish came from.
Well, you know, as I've said before, I've spent a little time growing up in the Delta myself, and Julia, in a lot of ways, is typical of Delta women. I've known a bunch of these tough women. As a matter of fact, I knew her mother and father before I knew her. Judy and Clark Reed are an extraordinary pair of Delta royalty. And I was sitting by about Judy one night at a dinner party in Jackson. He said, "You need to get to know my daughter." And I said, "Well, hell, I've been trying for years." And it was the painter John Alexander, who knew Julia before I did in New York. Julia and I put the deal together a couple of times. We'd sit around and talk. She was a junior at Georgetown in 1980 when I moved to McLean, Virginia. And we just kept missing each other. We figured we were in the room together a couple of times, but if I'd ever heard her talk, I would have jumped right on top of her because she chose the delta in her weight. She's just extraordinary. But once we fell on each other, we started finishing each other's sentences, and it never stopped. It just never stopped. I saw her in New York or Washington or New Orleans, but not until the Hot Tamale Festival did I ever see her in Mississippi. But she kept the road burned up going home to see mama and daddy. And she was just extraordinary. She was blessed with an extraordinary family that she could write about. She never wrote a word of fiction, as far as I know. It was all true. And she made all of her friends, including me, smarter and cleverer and a lot taller than we really were. But it was amazing to be in her orbit.
That's right. I want to say that I read a quote when I was preparing for our interview by David Di Benedetto, the editor at Garden and Gun, and he said, you know, we were all voyeurs in Julia's life, her editors, her readers, and it was just because it was so much larger and more fun than our own. Well,
you know, I've had an out-of-body experience reading old emails and listening to her. She reads her own work in South Toward Home, a title of a book of compilations of her Garden and Gun pieces. And she's shameless. She laughs at her own lines, and they're funny. They really are. But I've been, you know, just in my studio working and listening to her read, and it's like having her close by. But the 28th of this month, she would have been dead a year, and that's hard to fathom. It's hard to deal with.
Well, that sense of humor really shows up in this picture, Bill.
Yeah. She was keeping the rain off. This was a food shoot that Paul Costello in the background is shooting there. And we're all just dancing to her tune. She had musicians there. It was a party. We had to eat all the damn food, all of her oysters and everything. But Julie just said that this rain is going to kill us. It's going to kill us. But it did not. She kept it at bay.
I love it. A little bit of impatience here. It might be towards the end of the shoot and time to participate.
Well, when she started rolling those eyes, this was a famous Julia Reed look, and it's not one you ever had wanted focused on you. I can assure you.
Well, this next image is one that we've used for promotion, but not quite with this live action. I love this picture. It's so much fun. Tell us where you are and about the occasion.
It's Easter Sunday, and Elizabeth Cordes made that little video thing there. It's breakfast at Brennan's, you know, after they'd retooled the kitchen and refurbished the place, and Julia got us. Roy Blunt Jr. Was there, and it's, you know, Roy Blunt said, upon hearing of Julia's demise, he said, you know, that's so unlike Julia to die, and it was.
That's beautiful. I love this. I love this little video. Now, the next picture we have is one that's a little more formal of you. I mean, you know, like most of our friendships, we share in each other's homes and at parties and, you know, traveling, but you two also shared the stage. I mean, you shared important conversations in front of lots of people.
Yeah, Julia, I leaned on her pretty hard to be a part of this. It was an extraordinary gathering of artists and writers and people at Ole Miss. March was about, I guess, 3 years ago now. It was meditations on the power of place in art and literature. And she had a good sense of that place. As I said, the Mississippi Delta was hers. And Julia rose to the occasion. She wasn't well. She didn't feel well. But she jumped in there and just saved the day on this particular panel, which was chaired by Betsy Bradley, who's also from Greenville, Mississippi. And it was, we made the place come alive. And, you know, Mississippi is one of the power places on the planet. People who have never been there have all sorts of opinions about it. But it's like it's like your little waterhead baby. You don't want anybody talking about it that hadn't had one themselves. And Julia was fabulous on this panel, as a matter of fact.
Well, you speak about her power as a panelist, and really this next image really speaks to her power as an interviewer. She was a great journalist, and this is an image you shared with me by the artist and filmmaker Bruce Weber. And I thought I would read the caption that accompanies this picture on Instagram. It says, this is by Bruce Weber, "I was saddened to hear about the recent passing of Julia Reed. I once visited her in New Orleans during Jazz Fest and spent some quality time with her when she wrote about her home in Golden Beach for Vogue. When I was making a film about Robert Mitchum and I needed a strong woman who could stand tall against him, I called on Julia. Together, they were like a house on fire. You just didn't know at any moment if you'd have to call the FBI to rescue him.
Julia is what I call the original Schwambo, which is an acronym for She Who Must Be Obeyed. And we all did, Brother Hank and me and everybody else. And we danced to her tune, and we're happy to do it, happy to do it.
Absolutely. Such a powerful image here. I'll share one more from Bruce Weber, which is just a cool picture, black and white. Bill, we discussed this earlier. I'm not sure if this is Dr. John or the
I believe it is
photographer.
Dr. John, yeah, when he was younger and healthy.
Such a great photo. Now, here's another beautiful image you shared, a personal image you shared of Julia's home desk in New Orleans.
Well, she'd be mad at me if she knew I took this picture, that I would boast at her. There was all this great disorder, this clutter in her life, but it all came together in her writing. It was just airtight writing, and that's the way she did it, though. And I've been listening to these Garden and Gun pieces, and she talked about all these tote bags she had that she carried to her place over in Destin, on the other side of Destin, in watercolor. And she said, I'll quit carrying all these bags. I'm never going to read these things. I'm never going to do these things. But she got it done. As David Benabato said, she would come up on a deadline at the very end. It's a horrible term, deadline, considering what we're doing here today. But she never let anybody down. She got it done, but at her own time. That was her. It might have been Miss Harris's version of the motto of Madeira School. Function in disaster and finish in style. It's an extraordinary thing.
Oh, I've got to write that down. That might be my new motto as well.
Well, the official motto of Madeira is "Make haste slowly." I don't. That doesn't even sound good in Latin, but I think "function in disaster and finish in style" says a lot more about Miss Reed than anything else could.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. All right. Now, since we're in New Orleans, we'll stay there a little while. Here's an image of Julia and a very special spirit in her life. Tell us about this picture.
Oh, that damn dog, Henry. I've never seen anybody love a dog more than she did him. We were over in watercolor one night, and Henry got out, and she said she was sure he'd gone to the ocean and gotten run over. And, I grew up with dogs, and especially dogs with a nose like Henry. And I looked around and sniffed a little bit, and the people 2 doors down were cooking hamburgers, and the children were playing with Henry, and he was waiting for a treat. He wasn't lost at all. But Henry died the 13th of July. So we had Henry. Henry outlived Julia, which is probably a blessing when you think about it.
Oh, wow. I did remember after she and Keith Meacham launched their online company, the Reed Smith Company, they had made these brass knobs, pulls that you might put on a cabinet in the shape of Henry here.
Yeah, well, Henry was an alter ego of Julia's, and he'd been cremated, and his ashes are buried right next to her in Greenville. As a matter of fact, Hank and a bunch of us are gathering on the 11th of September, to a year after her death, which would have been her birthday, to honor her and celebrate her life in Greenville.
Now here's Julia in the kitchen. You told me this picture, Julia getting ready to cook. Tell us a kitchen story.
I made that photograph, then I got out of the way because she was making that kitchen. It was a laboratory for her. It was extraordinary. She not only gave recipes to people, she cooked from them. I mean, she was just an extraordinary entertainer. She elevated entertaining to the level of an art form, as far as I'm concerned. And as I said, I made that particular picture, helped her make that scotch, and then I got out of the damn way. She worked her magic.
That's beautiful. Here we have a photograph taken at the Ogden. There's a lot happening in this picture.
Well, that's our buddy, John Alexander, to my right immediately. And I'm sort of trying to sell my book, of course. And Judy's got that strange thing on her head. It's an auction. We're auctioning off this painting of mine off to the right to make, the Ogden is an extraordinary institution. And she was a chairman of the board there for the longest. And when New Orleans got hit by Katrina, I'm very proud of this fact that the Ogden was the first institution to open back up, and their Thursday night music venues have continued, and they're free and they're just extraordinary. They just it's a place for the musicians of New Orleans to play and for the artists to gather. And the Thursday nights at the O have got to be a tradition now since Katrina, which is what, I don't know, a decade or more ago, maybe 20 years, who knows what it was. But Julia did a great job there at that institution, and she always blamed me for making her do it. She said, "God damn it, Dunlap, you made me be chairman of that board. It's about to kill me." But
I love it. I love it. Well, this is one thing that I love is here we have Julia holding court in a beautiful black dress at a lovely affair at, a high fine art museum. And then here we have her here in Jim's Cafe. And to me, this is one of the most really powerful things about her is that she could so fluidly occupy these really esteemed spaces and then these really humble spaces as well.
Well, I was looking at this one. There's another photograph on both sides of this in which she's looking at me rolling those eyes, and this is a good one. She posed with that a little bit. But one of the first times I met Julia, Philip Carter and a whole bunch of us gathered at Galatoire for lunch, and it was about 11:15 when we all arrived there in the morning. At 11:30 that night, I'd slipped out of the back through the kitchen. We'd been going on all day. And later on, a woman came up to Julia and introduced herself and said, I remember one time in Galatoire when a woman got picked up in a chair and carried out to the car. And Julia said, honey, that was me. She said, no, really? She said, yeah, I was much thinner then, easier to pick up. But it was just extraordinary. We drew on the napkins and carried on. And Philip Carter was in fine form. And he's one of those Greenvilleites that's up in Maine now. And Jim's Cafe this was after I'm sure it was one of the post mortems of the Tamale Festival. And we all gathered in Jim's, and the napkins and all the accoutrements are there. And Judy's there with an empty Scotch glass.
I love that. I love it. It's beautiful. Now, as you can probably tell, Jim's in Greenville. We're moving from New Orleans to the Delta, her home, where she spent a lot of time really in the last probably decade. I think you would all agree.
Mary Margaret, where are you from? I didn't realize you were a Delta girl.
I grew up in Drew. I'm a Sunflower County girl.
Oh, that'll work.
Yeah, that'll do. Now, I do want to share.
I know about Sunflower County.
Well, this is an image I tried to skip over it, but I'm glad I didn't. This is an image you shared, Bill. It's a beautiful pocket square and a postcard, and I'd like to read it because I think it's hard to read on the screen. But this is a postcard that Julia sent to you. It says, "Dearest Dunlap, I've been meaning to send this pocket square since I got it in London in September. The socks were Valentine's Day presents. But it's good to wear your heart on your sleeve or your shins all year long. Clearly, I've been thinking of you and send up many hopes that you'll be back dancing soon. All my love, Junior."
Yep, I've got that card in my hand right now and the pocket square in my jacket. So I'll show that to the folks. But we communicated by iPhone all the time. Julia would call people back. With the occasional time she would call you back when she was driving at a high rate of speed with a cigarette and a drink in her hand, listening to music. But for the most part, we emailed. And I've used Siri. I use voice recognition on my iPhone. And every time I said Julia, it heard Junior. And she started to answer that way. She started to sign off as Junior. So it slipped through from time to time. But those communications mean a lot. And I'm holding that card in my hand right now.
It's a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm so pleased you have on that pocket square today. That's really special.
Well, it doesn't match a damn thing, but it's a good one. It's a nice piece of orange.
It's good, I guess, for a Zoom when you're just top up, right? Okay. Now here is the Delta Folly.
Yeah.
Julia built this house outside of Greenville near, I believe, what we call Rattlesnake Bayou. Hank, you know a lot about this space. Bill, I think you spent a lot of time here too.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about Delta Folly.
Julia designed it on a napkin. Hank built it, and it's to my mind even more than Jefferson's Monticello. It's an extension of the personality of the human being that designed it. It's basically a library with a kitchen and a bedroom and a bathroom. And that's her house. That's what she wanted. And that yard, Hank, comes alive with daffodils in the spring. It's just the damnedest thing.
It does. Am I on?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, great. No, this house was a absolute labor of love that I helped Julia with it as much as I could. From the redesign stage, we had a roof on it that wasn't going to work in the Mississippi Delta underneath the trees that you see around there. It was designed by James Carter out of Alabama, a magnificent architect. And when I saw the plans originally, I said, James, what are we trying to build here? He said, we're trying to build a new house and make it look old, and we're trying to build a small house and make it look big. So we got started. And I told her I'd help her every way I could, would basically straw boss the job and try to do all I could. And don't think there were not some ups and downs in getting her wishes done out here. And one funny thing, it was going into wintertime. We had the foundation trenches dug. It was time to pour concrete, and we had a rain coming. And I called Julia. I said, Julia, if we don't bring a pumper truck in here and get this thing pumped today, we're going to be springtime before we can ever pour the foundation. She thought for about 5 seconds, and after I told her what it was going to cost, and it was a big figure. I cannot tell you on television what she said, but in other words, it was get the truck. And that's what we did. We got the foundation poured. We went into building this house. There is probably $100 worth of pennies and nickels and dimes scattered through that house because the floors had to be a dime's width apart, the floorboards. The cypress in the walls had to be a nickel's width apart. We had to have a quarter width on some of the ceiling boards. And this is all the architect's recommendations. And it took us a while to meet those recommendations, but we did. And we came out with something that is pure Julia. As Bill said, it's all about her. It's a huge library with a small living room enclosed in that library, a bedroom, a bathroom, and her kitchen. It's Julia all around on a postage size stamp of a lot. The lot is not big, as you see.
Well, she hit the ground running and entertaining there too. We had some wonderful parties there. Just an extraordinary time.
Now, this is a picture of Julia's bourbon bar, which is inside Delta Folly, this house we've just seen. I do want to remind our audience that please put questions in the chat. We're going to have time at the end to ask questions of Bill and Hank. So as you're seeing these images and you're thinking of good questions, please put them in the chat so we can share them. Now, Hank, when we talked, you mentioned that you had done a special blessing of this very space. And Bill, when you and I talked, you mentioned that this is your fish. This is your artwork.
Yeah, it's my trout and John Alexander's monkey. So I don't, Julia was very supportive of Alexander and me. And as I said, Alexander knew her in New York before I did. He's a good friend of mine from Texas. He lives in New York. He said, God damn it, Dunlap, you got to know this woman. You know, she's like you with a skirt on, you know. So I love them both and I love them together. And Lord, we've had some hellacious times. As a matter of fact, the road trip is something we've all done together. To get the three of us in a car. Julie and I were glad we did not know each other in the 80s. It was the mid 90s before we met because we would have killed one another. It was when we were all crazy back then. But
I knew her back then though, Bill. I knew her.
You're lucky to be alive, son.
Let me, if I may say something about this picture right here. This was, and I am so honored to have been able to be asked to, well, Julia had a house blessing. And all of the friends that were there, several of them were asked to bless different parts of the house as we went through the kitchen, the living room, the bathrooms, wherever. And I was asked to be able to bless the bar. And it's such a honor to me to have blessed the bar that resides under Bill Dunlap trout and John Alexander's monkey. Now that's a saying right there.
Well, you're a mighty spiritual person, Hank. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. It took spirituality some time to be around Julia. I'll guarantee.
A higher power. Here you two are, Hank, in what I believe might be your natural element.
Knee deep in the river.
This photo here, we had 5 or 6 wonderful sandbar parties, and Julia wrote about one of them called the Ultimate Party Stop. It's Garden and Gun. It explains, you can pull it up online and read the article. It explains how these parties got started, what it took to put them together, and all that. And this picture here is not of one of those parties, but it's a picture of a scouting trip before a party.
So that's the pre-party party.
Find the sandbars that were suitable to Julia and make sure that everything was going to be set up right. And sometimes we had more fun at the scouting party than we did the regular party.
Well, I want to read a quote from Julia Reed, and to me, it kind of sums up maybe the friendship the two of you shared, Hank. It says, "I've always said that danger, or at least the possibility of it, is a crucial element to any good party."
That's true. And one party we planned, we went out on the river a week before, found a wonderful sandbar, and lo and behold, the river jumped 3 feet on that week and covered the sandbar up. We had to go out and find another one. But Julia always trusted me, and whatever we decided, or she decided she wanted to do, somebody said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" She said, "I'm not going to worry about it. Hank will get it done and set it up. And that's what we'll do." So, and that's what we did. Now, this is a wonderful picture right here of an actual party. It shows some of the old rugs, the Oriental rugs we would bring out and set down, the dogs we would have out, and the group of folks. I'm not going to go through who all that is right there, but that's quite interesting people in that lineup right there.
Well, I think I've been on my last sandbar party. I can't imagine going to one without Julia.
Well, I hope you can. We'll see. It certainly will not be the same, I can assure you. There's no way it'll be the same. And what was always so interesting about these parties is they would be held on the Sunday afternoon after the Hot Tamale Festival that had been going on for 3 days, from the Thursday night party all day Friday, the Saturday hot tamale stuff, the fish fry parties that the Reeds would host Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, I would get up and take a complete boatload of equipment and gear out, get the tent set up, get the bars set up, get the table, get the chairs set up, get the Oriental rugs on the sand, whatever we had to do. And along with Sidney Boll Weevil Law, with his big boat, then we'd start shuttling people out. And I remember the first time we really had a party out there, they were a little late getting there because she and Jessica Brent had gone to every chicken joint in Greenville and bought up every piece of chicken that was available in Greenville to get out on this sandbar. Knew how to put together and have a party, and I think store-bought fried chicken was one of her best things that she ever liked to serve.
Now, here's an incredible image. Tell our audience a little bit about this one. This is, I guess, headed to the sandbar.
All right, this is on the way to the left. And these parties would be in October. It would be either hot, or it could be cool, or it could be cold. This is Sidney Iverson, Boll Weevil Law, the captain of the boat. And sitting next to him is Julia. And that picture brings tears and makes me choke up when I look at the enjoyment, the fun, the pleasure that Julia Reed was having. And sitting next to her is one of her dearest friends, Jessica Lang. And somebody would ask me, "Well, who is that?" I said, "Well, that's King Kong's girlfriend right yonder." And she and Julia were so close and so tight, and they shared a lot of fun together, and they shared a lot of love together. I know that.
Jessica Lang has made a wonderful group of photographs of the Mississippi Delta too, all about Highway 61 from way up where it starts in the north to the down. It's an extraordinary exhibition, which I've seen, and her book is just remarkable.
It is, it really is.
She works behind the camera and in front of it, you know, and that's Ashley Treadmore up to the right there, up to the right. Yeah, it's Ashley.
They were on the way down to Howard Brent's place. They were having an alligator hunt down there, and Julia wanted them to come through here. And they were picking cotton, and said Jessica wanted a picture of cotton picking operation. So I said, "Well, we can do it. I can handle it. Come on down here." So we went across the lake over there at Glen Allen, and there was a 6-row cotton picker out in the middle of the field. So I went around in the turn row, got set up, and said, "All right, now, Jessica, get your picture." Well, I looked out there, and she had squatted down in between the cotton row with her camera. And there was a gentleman on that cotton picker was not looking at this blonde lady in front of him in the middle of the cotton road. He was looking at those picker headers. And within 15 seconds, I bolted through that field, grabbed her up like a halfback on a football game, and got her out of before she became into a bale of cotton. That made me sweat getting her out of there. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I may be saving your life," but she got some good things. I know that.
That's great. Now, friendship, Bill, when we talked, you talked about what a great friend Julia was, how many powerful relationships she had with other women. And then also here's just an incredible collection of Mississippi friends here. This was at the Mississippi Book Festival, which was our original reason for getting together.
Last one we had, yeah. Well, I think Julia knew intuitively that in order to have a friend, you had to be a friend. And she was close to a lot of people. You know, everybody thought they were her best friend. And, you know, and she didn't lie about it. She used to tell me, said, "Dunlap, you like too many people." And I stand guilty of that. But at the same time, if Julia focused on you, it was like a laser. And she cared about this place, doing it more than anyone I know. And she took no shit off anybody. You know, she did not, fools did not gather around her gladly. She did not put up with it. It was extraordinary. But she ruled in New York. She ruled in Washington. She ruled in New Orleans. So she was the best of all of us. And I miss her terribly.
If you're talking about friendship, if I may interject something here, thinking back about that picture of Julia in her kitchen, I think one of the last meals I had with Julia, she called one afternoon. She was at the Folly having some folks over for dinner. Of course, wanted me to come. And I said, "Well, Julia, what you making?" She said, "I don't know what I'm going to make." I said, "Well, Julia, I'm just made up a huge wild duck gumbo." She said, "Absolutely, bring it. That's just what we need." So I loaded up, headed on up there. Now, being somewhat of a purist myself, I always use brown rice with my duck gumbo. Well, I get there, and she opens up that can and she sips that pot and she sees that brown rice in there. And I found out very quickly about friendship with Julia. The more Julia loved you, the more she felt comfortable cussing you out up one side and down the other. And I couldn't do anything but just sit there and take it, knowing that all I want to say was, "Julia, I always have brown rice with my wild duck gumbo." Well, that was an abomination. Thank goodness there was one packet of Minute Maid white rice in her cupboard, and we cooked that up, and that served the multitude. So Jesus looked upon me that day.
You know, Robert St. John's in this photograph too, and I got to tell you what Julia did for food, for restaurants in this world. Robert will tell you, it was just extraordinary. She gave everybody permission to go out and amount to something, and Robert would tell you where he hear that he owes her a great personal debt, and they were good friends all the way through. And Malcolm White, of course, you know what he did for the arts is just incalculable. But it looks like we got the band back together. We're like ABBA. Drop out from ABBA.
It's a great photo. And then lastly, this picture is not very clear, but this is the dedication page from Line and Making a Living, your book, Bill. Can you tell us what it says or give us the idea around?
Well, it's a little enough to do, but I did dedicate this book to Julia Reed. And I'll read what it says. For Julia E. Reed, who lived life with a fierceness that made sparks fly, illuminating all around her. Those sparks sometimes could set you on fire, but it was always worth the risk.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Could I add one more interjection here? Bill had alluded to the cacophony of people that surrounded Julia whenever she gathered, whenever we were together. There's one person that we lost about 2 months ago, and his name was Rabbit Jenkins. Julia never did anything around here that Rabbit Jenkins wasn't a part of, because he was like a third arm to Julia. Whatever it was she wanted or was doing, or needed done, Rabbit was right in the middle of it. She respected him, she admired him, she loved him dearly. And it was just a wonderful relationship and a wonderful scene to be able to be around when we were doing something either at the Baby Doll House or we were doing something at the Highlands Club, to see Rabbit Jenkins working hand in hand with Julia, knowing exactly what she wanted, exactly what she admired, and what she required. And so here's the rabbit. I'll read. Ain't no telling what rabbit Julia up to now, up in heaven now that Henry's up there. So they having a big time, I guarantee.
Well, I'm sorry that I don't have something to raise, but several people in our audience are interested in knowing what you two are drinking. So Bill, Wilson Golden asks, great to see you. What are you drinking?
Well, I'm having a little Jack Daniels and ice down here, which is kind of my style. And one of the last emails I got from Julia, we were both sick. I had some back surgery about the same time she was getting treated for cancer at Vanderbilt. She was trying to get me into Vanderbilt. And I said, what's the point? I'm happy with my doctor. I told her I was doing rehab by walking around the block with a glass of bourbon. She said, hell, I'd like to see that, by God. But I wish she were here to see it.
Well,
You drinking?
I drank Scotch whiskey, and Julia drank Dewar's. That was her Scotch of choice. I'm having a Johnny Walker Black with a little water in it. And I just didn't think that Bill Dunlap and I could get together and talk about Julia without having a wheat dram or two. So I'll raise my glass to Julia, Bill.
I'm drinking. I started at 4:30 before we got on this show. I've been drinking for a while this afternoon.
That's Eastern time. Now, we do have another question. This is from Bob Krebs. He says, what's the fondest memory that stands out for each of these gentlemen about Miss Reed?
Well, it's a continuation. It's not a single one, It's once I realized that I was in her power, in her circle, I was just happy to be there. And you never wanted to let her down. You never wanted to disappoint her. Of course, we always did, but that's kind of part of it too. Judy was just a good, and let me tell you one of the things I did that was smart. We've got a daughter, Linda and I have a daughter, 25-year-old daughter who's in London right now. And one of the things I did was put her in touch with strong women like Julia Reed and Baba Groom and a couple of others, and let the osmosis work. And Julia was a great influence on my daughter. And one of the reasons she's able to live in London and carry on like this is that she knows and loves Julia Reed and the memory thereof.
Well, I'm gonna mention two memories. Without even getting into the hoodoo mama's ball she had after she broke off her first wedding engagement. But Julia was quite young at the time, and One Block East was ongoing with Ken Levy right there. And Julia's daddy had an apartment right across the alley from the police station. And Julia knew that there was one window that was never locked in there. Well, we would slip over there with a bunch of friends, and I would lift Julia up and push her through the window into the kitchen so she could go unlock the door to let us all in the apartment. Ran it right across from the police station. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. The one thing that flashed to my mind was we were doing a interview, Julia was, with Anthony Bourdain. Now that was, well, I'm not going to go too much into that. It was not that good of an interview. But he was leaving Dozy Place, and we went to Po Monkeys up in Marigold, Mississippi. Well, Howard Brent had rented a limousine for us all to go up to Po Monkeys to be with Anthony Bourdain and all like that. Well, Anthony wouldn't come in and until it was time for him to talk and all like that. But we were having a wonderful time anyway. So on the way home, myself, Julia Reed, Howard Brent, Jessica Lang, Raymond Longoria with his guitar, and I've never seen a woman's leg turned into a spaghetti noodle in my life, but I swear I believe Jessica Lang wrapped her leg around Raymond's 3 times like a wet spaghetti noodle. And we were playing music. We were having such a good time. Had an ice bucket in there and some libations. We get back to Bow Road and Clark and Judy's driveway. I don't know how long we were there, and Clark came out and he said, where have y'all been? It's almost 4 o'clock in the morning. And Julia looked at her daddy and she said, Daddy, we've been out here since 12 o'clock. So that's a pretty wonderful memory right there.
Now, Linda, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but we do have a question for you. The same question from Rebecca Sadenberg. What is your favorite memory of Julia?
Oh my gosh.
Are you in the picture?
Am I? Am I?
You are.
Julia was such a wonderful, sincere friend. I have to say that the day that we were going to go meet Bill for lunch, and she said, let me go run out, and we were in New Orleans, let me go run out and walk Henry. And she came back cussing the way she would do, saying, damn, those people tried to pet Henry and he pulled me down on the ground. I think I broke my elbow. And she said, but come on, we gotta go to lunch. And I said, you didn't break your elbow, because you can't break an elbow and drive the car like you're doing. We got in the car and she drove there. She said, damn, this is hurting. And she got the cell phone. She was driving. Actually, I don't know what hand she was driving with. I did have to reach over and steer for a little bit. And she got a doctor friend of hers on the phone who said, oh my gosh, you've got to go straight to Truro in New Orleans, go to the ER. So she dropped me off at the restaurant and she said, I got to go you go have lunch. I'll pick you up afterwards. Lo and behold, she did break her arm really badly and was in a sling and a cast for months, in fact. And I thought nobody could break their arm and then continue to keep on functioning like she did, but she did.
And she got a couple of articles out of it too, which was
She did that and made her deadline.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, I know that, Julia, of course, got her start as a journalist and, working for incredible publications ranging from Newsweek to Vogue to New York Times Magazine, and then, of course, later the column with Garden and Gun. But she wrote on a range of things: politics, powerful women, and clearly lifestyle, music, design. Would you say food?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of all those things, I mean, politics, food, people, what would you describe as her number one passion?
Well, I can't tell you what a pleasure it was to pick up the Sunday New York Times and go to the food section and read about Greenville, Mississippi in it. It probably just was the chagrin of a lot of those folks, but it made good sense to me. But I just think Julia was a chronicler of life, of what we were doing and what it was all about. And it was her life, and it was not boring, and she had no tolerance for boredom whatsoever. And she wouldn't allow any of us to be boring. And no, she just wrote it all down, and it's an extraordinary thing. She was Boswell-esque in that regard, that she wrote everything down, and it made sense, and it made a lot more sense when she did it.
Cynthia Tyler asks, or she says, I'm a fan of Julia's cookbooks. Do you have a favorite dish of hers?
Hank? Every time the first couple of times I saw you, you were making duck poppers at her request, at her insistence, right?
I don't understand what the question was.
Do you have a favorite dish?
A major dish that Julia likes?
Julia's, do you have a favorite recipe or a favorite dish that she prepared?
Oh yeah, Doe's Eat Place, fried shrimp, and a porterhouse steak.
That's off the menu, though. That's
at Julia's table. And
her grits and griots were awfully good too.
Every time I would go to dinner at Doe's with Julia, she'd order a porterhouse and I'd order a fillet. And she said, why are you ordering that? That's no good. You shouldn't order that. I said, Julia, you've got a great big porterhouse. What part of that porterhouse do you eat? She said, why, the fillet? I said, well, then that's all I'm getting is the fillet. Well, the last two times I was at Doe's with Julia, that's what she ordered, was the fillet instead of the porterhouse. But Doe's Eat Place, her corner table in the side room is a shrine for Julia Reed right now. Got pictures of her. There was a picture that I had put in there on the wall of her sitting in the high-heeled shoe when she was the queen of the Muse. What was the New Orleans crew down there? And that was a wonderful time in her life when they honored her to be that crew. That was a lot of fun, and it showed Julia to the T.
Well, there was a very serious side to her too, though. Julia and I never talked politics. We just never did. I just couldn't do that. Didn't talk religion, but she was a very spiritual person. And but it was that sense of place, that Mississippi that we both knew, and that we could talk about and talk around. And there are a lot of different Mississippis. People think of it as one monolithic kind of place. But it's been what, 2.5 million people for the last 150 years. People leave, they go. You know, one of the things I learned about Mississippi a long time ago, and Judy knew this intuitively, you might go away, but you can never get away. And that's, it drags you back, for better or for worse, it drags you back.
There's one other thing. If you needed to talk to Julia about something, had a question for her, you could call her, she wouldn't answer the phone. You could text, she wouldn't return the text. You could email her, she wouldn't return that until she was ready to. But if she ever wanted to get in touch with you, by golly, you better have gotten back in touch with her. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, you know, I tell you, I miss her. I miss her a lot. And I said, you told this, Mary, I told you this before, that a very wise person told me once about the loss of someone that's close to you. You'll never get over it, but if you're lucky, you just might get used to it. And I ain't used to it yet.
Well, Bill, I think you sent me a picture of Julia that when I opened up the envelope and it fell out, it's a picture of her, a side picture of her like a silhouette of black and white. And it absolutely brings tears to my eyes every time I look at it, because it's such a classic photo of a classic person.
Yeah.
And whether Julia was on the Sandbar and whatever she had on the Sandbar, or whether she had on her black was her favorite color, with whatever kind of high heel shoes y'all call them things, or those stiletto pants that she wore. She was class personified wherever she was.
Now, I know one of the last projects for Julia was the bookstore in Greenville, Brownwater Books. Hank, is Brownwater still open? Are they?
I don't, quite honestly, I don't think so. I think we've got a lot of inventory left in Brownwater Books, but the storefront itself is not open. That's all I know.
She and Keith Meacham have those pop-up shops that they do from time to time. They're still sort of doing that. So Julia's sense of style, and, you know, a lot of people made a big fuss about the auction of her material possessions at Neil's in New Orleans, and that did well for the foundation. And I'm anxious to see what the foundation's going to do, what they intend. They need a statement about, you know, how they want to continue Julia's ideas and her things that interested her, and promotion of the Delta is kind of part of it. I think that's going to be a big deal. And I'd like to see that house of hers. I'd like to see the Folly turned into a place where artists could go and live and work. And I think Julia would be charmed about that. I have no idea where it's going to go. It hasn't, you know, this whole business of her being gone hadn't settled on everybody yet. You know, it's not really clear that she's actually gone yet. You know, I expect her to show up. You know, as I said, I've been listening to her voice in the studio, and it's eerie. It's very, very eerie.
You know, it really, I don't think any of us, Bill and Linda, have really had closure to lose Julia yet, you know. And
of course, it's not even a word. As Julia be the person.
You close out on something that you think about every day, that you see something, you think about it. I've gone across something, seen something, been somewhere, fell out laughing. They say, what are you laughing at? I said, Julia Reed just hit me. You know, I mean, what would she do in this kind of a situation? What would she say? Now, Julia could sometimes shock people by what she said. But Bill, as you well know, but she was such a class woman. And even though sometimes it wouldn't sound too classy what she was saying, it was still loaded with class.
No, there's no question about that. That there was a uniqueness there too. And as I said, she's typical in a lot of ways of a lot of Delta women, but she's all the Delta women I've known rolled into one. And
Well, she clearly has an incredible legacy with her words, with her writing, with all of the advocacy she did through the years. But what a legacy of friends. I mean, I think that's what we all hope to leave behind, is an incredible legacy among the people we love. And I thank you both for doing this with us at Mississippi Today and sharing your memories and your personal photos. This was really special to me, and I know special to everyone who joined us today. So I thank you both. I thank you both. And I want to say thanks to all of our readers who tuned in today, who made time to be here with us. we can't do this work without support from our members like you, and we are so grateful. I think like Bill said about Julia, you know, we all, we're here for the good fight for Mississippi. So I appreciate the support in that continued effort. And Bill, thank you.
Thank you, Mary
Linda,
Margaret.
thank you.
Mississippi Today for everything you all do. It means a lot, especially to those expatriates of us who have found our way to Florida for the time being.
Well, we know you know where to find us when you come back. So thank you. Okay. Beverly Lowry says hello to all. Thank you for doing this. I watched and listened.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All right. Well, we'll let you all go. Again, we thank you. Come, please let us know how you enjoyed the program. We want to hear back from you. We want to do more conversations like this. So if you have good ideas, thoughts about interesting Mississippians and beyond that you'd like to hear from, we want to know about it. So please do let us know. You can reach out to me, Mary Margaret White at mwhite@mississipitoday.org. And you can always find any of us on mississipitoday.org. So again, thank you all. Have a wonderful week, and cheers to Julia Reed.
Absolutely.
Julia Reed.
You're here.
Yeah.